I'm Miss Smith, and this is my social studies class. Here are my students. And today we are discussing the westward expansion and the Oregon Trail. So the first question for you guys is, does anybody remember what we discussed yesterday about the westward expansion?
It started in Missouri.
Started in Missouri, good. So today we're going to go over more in depth about the Oregon Trail and the westward expansion and what all happened. And we're going to start off by watching a short video. So pay attention because we're going to have a short quiz afterwards.
Trail. Many children made the 5-month trek west with their families. Many children were hesitant to go. They were sad to leave home and worried they would never see or hear from their friends again. Some had to leave grandparents and cousins. They also had to leave behind most of their worldly possessions. Wagons could hold food and supplies for the trip, but there was little space for toys, books, and clothes. The trip took about 5 or 6 months and was about 2,000 miles long. Most of the kids walked. People only rode in the wagons when sick or tired or when the weather was bad. The wagons bounced and jostled and were not comfortable. Also, the extra weight of people made it hard on the ox teams pulling the heavy wagons. There were many hot days and cold nights. Pioneers slept outside in the open air when weather was good, or in tents or under wagons when it rained. Sometimes there were terrific thunderstorms, which scared children and animals and blew tents down. Dust was a big problem as the pioneers walked along the trail. The dust would get in their eyes and choke their breathing. Pioneer kids saw a lot of interesting things. Great herds of buffalo, vast open grasslands, landmarks like Chimney Rock and Devil's Gate, and hot springs and waterfalls. For some, the trip was a great adventure. Other kids faced great hardships, such as sickness or death of parents, starvation, and accidents. Pioneers took most of their own food, and every day the meals were pretty much the same. Usually bread, beans, bacon, ham, and dried fruit, over and over again. Occasionally they had fresh fish or buffalo or antelope hunted along the way. A lot of families took along a milk cow, so kids were able to have fresh milk. Butter could be made by putting the cream in a pail and hooking it under the wagon. The jostling of the wagon all day long would churn the cream into butter by supper time. Children had regular chores while on the trail. Many kids herded animals and milked cows. Both boys and girls sometimes drove the ox teams that pulled their wagons. Kids also helped with cooking and washing dishes and watched after younger children. An important job was fetching water and gathering firewood and buffalo chips, dried buffalo manure used for campfires when the wood came down. There was time for playing and exploring and visiting with friends. At night, there was singing and dancing around the campfire. They played games such as London Bridge, Run Sheep Run, Leapfrog, Button Button, Prisoner's Base, Flying Dutchman, Ante-I Over, and Pom Pom Pole Play. Picking flowers and playing with animals were other typical ways kids had fun. Most kids were so busy with chores and travel that school was set aside during the journey. Some wrote letters and kept diaries. Many read from the family Bible to improve their reading skills. They learned a lot from their adventures on the trail, but formal schooling waited until they were settled in Oregon. Kids were fascinated with Indians and liked to pretend and play about being Indians. When pioneer wagon trains met Indians along the trail, they usually did some trading for food and clothes or got directions for traveling and crossing rivers. Sometimes Indians became angry with pioneers crossing their land, and there was fighting. Many pioneer kids were scared of Indians and worried about meeting them while traveling. They were afraid of being kidnapped or hurt. Most of the time, the kids found out Indians were only interested in trading and visiting, and were very friendly. Some kids kept diaries and wrote letters while they were traveling. The letters could be sent from military posts along the trail and given to someone traveling eastward to be mailed. Other people wrote about their time on the trail after they had grown up.
Okay, good job, guys.
Would it be?
So, can anybody tell me one thing that they learned from the video?
They use buffalo chips to start fires.
They used buffalo chips to start fires, you're right. Anybody else?
The dust would choke them and their eyes would hurt.
The dust choked them and their eyes would hurt. Good. So, we know that this took place back in the 1800s, specifically 1811 to 1840. We know that it started in Missouri. Does anybody know where it ended?
Oregon.
Oregon, right. So, let's take a look at this map and see on. Take a look at the map, and we'll see the states that they traveled through right here. So we started over here in Missouri. We traveled through Kansas, a little bit of Nebraska, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, up to Oregon, up there by Portland. So, what do you think, how do you think you would have handled it if you would have lived back in the 1800s and traveled the route that they did?
It would have been fun, but sucked at the same time.
It would have been fun but difficult. What would have been difficult about it?
Lack of food and stuff.
The lack of food, yeah, that's a big part of it. Do you remember anything specifically that they said they ate?
Dried fruit.
Dried fruit?
Meat,
What kind of meat?
ham.
Ham. They ate ham.
Buffalo occasionally.
Occasionally they had meat. So now I'm going to hand you out your cardstock papers. And on these cardstock papers, I want you to do a drawing with your colored pencils of your favorite, or not favorite, but part that stuck out the most to you about the Oregon Trail. And then after you draw your pictures, we're going to discuss them. And I want you to write a short paragraph telling me the picture you drew and why you drew it. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.